Hi, David. It's a pleasure to having you here in Negocios TV. I would like to ask you about Iran. The last day, Ibrahim Raisi, the president of Iran, was talking about an imminent attack for Israel, and he said that if Israel attacks in Iran, there will be further attacks, and he could even destroy Israel. What do you think about these threats by Iran? What do you think about this?
Well, the unfortunate truth about Iran is that they are supporting terrorist organizations in our region. In our north, Hezbollah is supported by Iran, financed by Iran, and guided by Iran. In our south, Hamas again is guided by Iran and financed by Iran. And of course, the Houthis in the Straits of the Red Sea, they're also directed by Iran. So Iran is unfortunately a very unpleasant force across this region. Not the people of Iran. It's very important to make the distinction. Not the people of Iran, but the regime which runs Iran. They unfortunately are supporters of terrorist organizations. They have said very publicly that they wish to wipe my country off the face of the earth. And we, of course, here in Israel are here to make it very, very clear to them that we will not let that happen.
And what do you think about the attacks in the last weeks? What do you think about these tensions with Iran? Could it go further? Could it go even more? Or do you think that it's okay with these attacks?
Well, I can tell you that approximately 10 days ago, Iran fired 350 launches at us. Those are suicide drones, ballistic missiles, cruise missiles. Israeli fathers and mothers, mums and dads were running in and out of bomb shelters trying to protect themselves. This was a direct attack by the Iranian regime at my people. Which is the first time that has actually happened. But I want to be quite clear with you that we will not let Iran continue to threaten our people. Experience has taught this country that evil must be stood up to. It must be confronted. We cannot let the regime in Iran, the terrorists of Tehran, challenge this country unrestricted. We will stand up to them. And you know, they're not only our enemies here in Israel, but they're your enemies. They're enemies of any democracy anywhere in the world. So we will stand up to them. We're on the front line of this struggle, but we will prevail because we've got right on our side.
David, apart from talking about Iran, I would like to ask you about the operation in Rafah, an operation that seems imminent. What are your plans there in Rafah, and what about the news talking about an imminent operation?
So the Prime Minister has made clear that our plans are unchanged. The Prime Minister has said that we've destroyed about 18 or 19 of Hamas's battalions in Gaza, which leaves 4 battalions of Hamas still in Rafah. We no longer agree to live next to this genocidal, murderous, terrorist army. We know that we've put out about 80% of the fire of Hamas, but 20% still remains. If we do not evict Hamas, destroy Hamas in Rafah, then we know that Hamas will regroup, will retake over Gaza, and will attack us again, because that's what they say. They say it very, very clearly. And the thing is, we're listening to them. We know exactly what they're saying, and we know that they mean it, which means that we must move civilians out of harm's way. First and foremost, our battle is not with the ordinary Gazans. Our battle is with Hamas. We'll move people out of harm's way, but we will destroy the last 4 battalions of Hamas. The Prime Minister has made clear that a date has been set, and it is our intention to destroy the last vestiges of this terrorist army threatening us in our south.
David, and what about the people displaced in Rafah? A lot of people is talking about more or less 1.5 million of people displaced in this city, in this site. What do you think about this, and how can you protect their lives?
So just to remind you that this was not a war that we wanted or war that we asked for. This was a war which Hamas waged upon my people. Now, the last 6 months experience, the last 200 days of fighting has already shown that we work very, very hard to remove civilians from harm's way. We move them out the way, and then we go for Hamas. We know that we've killed over 13,000 of Hamas and Islamic Jihad terrorists. We've wounded and we've apprehended about the same amount. So that's about 26,000 Hamas terrorists off the battlefield. But we've done something which no army has ever done before, which is why General Petraeus in the US, the former US Army General, Colonel Richard Kemp, the head of British forces in Afghanistan, and Colonel Richard John Spencer, from West Point, the head of urban warfare in West Point, have said that Israel has set the gold standard when it comes to getting civilians out of harm's way and targeting the terrorists. Hamas hide amongst people. They don't wear uniforms. They hide in schools and mosques and hospitals. But when they fire at us from the midwife unit of a hospital, you can be sure that it's not midwives. It's not maternity midwives firing at us. It is Hamas terrorists. We know how to destroy Hamas, and we're going to finish the job, while, of course, doing our utmost to keep Gazans, ordinary Gazans, out of harm's way. Our fight is not with ordinary Gazans, our fight is with Hamas, and they will be destroyed.
David, what about Lebanon? We are talking about Hamas. What about Hezbollah? We were telling some news about the Israeli army is raising its alert level and closing the streets and roads adjacent to the border with Lebanon. What about this war with Lebanon, with Hezbollah, and this alert from the Israeli army?
So once again, it's Iran with its nefarious effect on this region. Iran are guiding Hezbollah. They fired many rockets at us, many drones, some of them have had a deadly effect. You know, there are 60,000 Israelis that have left the north of Israel because they're in rocket range of Hezbollah. We must allow those people to come home, which means we need to ensure that the threat to Hamas does not affect Israel anymore. We've been quite clear on this. We don't want another war on our northern border. We want a diplomatic resolution. Of course, United Nations resolutions say very clearly that Hezbollah should not be up against our border. They should be behind the Litani River. That's what UN resolutions say. We want a diplomatic resolution, but if that diplomatic resolution is not possible, we will push Hezbollah back by force. Again, it's not what we want, but we will do it because this country will be defended. 60,000 Israelis being moved out of their home for more than 6 months now is not acceptable. We refuse to accept Hezbollah's and their backers, Iran's efforts to displace us. This country will be defended.
David, I would like to ask you about your relationship with the Biden administration. There have been a lot of news talking about some pressures from Biden to Netanyahu, some phone calls. What do you think about this and these pressures of the Biden administration?
Well, I think it's a good question because the relationship between the US and Israel has, of course, been extremely close. We've been side by side, shoulder to shoulder for decades and decades and decades. And even today, more than 6 months into this war, the objectives which Israel has set out of destroying Hamas, of bringing back our 133 hostages and ensuring that Hamas no longer poses a threat to us from Gaza, those are the same objectives shared by the Americans. Now, the bipartisan nature of that relationship is extremely important to us. We are extremely grateful that the US Congress has agreed an increased aid package to help us push back the Iranian influences in this region. And the reason that they've done that is because we're on the front line of this fight against Iran, but Iran is not only our enemy here in Israel. Iran is also the US enemy, and it's also the enemy of any democracy, any freedom-loving country. You know, they're a fundamentalist Islamic organization which seeks the destruction of my country, but you shouldn't think it will end there, because they're after any freedom-loving country anywhere in the world. But we're on the front line, and we're here to stop them. And as I say to you again, this country will be defended.
David, the last question. I would like to ask you about the possible sanctions by the United States, by the Biden administration for against an IDF unit. What do you think about this news? What is true about this?
Well, the Prime Minister has made very, very clear his opposition to those moves. We think that they're not a good idea. All of our people here in Israel, you know, this is a citizens' army here in Israel. Everyone, almost everyone serves in the army. This is not a professional army. It's a people's army, which means that everyone on the street is either in or out of reserve duty. You know, we had 350,000 Israelis which rejoined the army to be able to put out this threat from Hamas and Hezbollah and Iran as well. That was 150% call out rate. So another 50% in addition called out, because there is unity in this country. There is unity on the objectives to destroy Hamas and to push Hezbollah back. And of course, to bring back our 133 hostages. 36 of them have already been murdered by Hamas, but we need to get those people out. 200 days in Hamas captivity is more than enough. They need to come back right now. But we know that it's only with sustained military pressure and diplomatic efforts, which we want to do as well, that we will bring those people home.
Well, David, thanks for coming here for Negocios TV. It's been a pleasure having you here in Negocios. Thank you, David.
Good to speak to you. Thank you very much.